right, welcome back to InsideFlix. We're going to be doing our box office report, our last box office report for 2022. Rich, tell us what movies made the top 5 this past weekend.
The number one film this Christmas weekend is Avatar: The Way of Water in its second week, earning $64 million. Coming in number 2 is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish with $12.4 million. Coming in number 3 is Whitney Houston: I Want to Dance with Somebody with 4.7. Number 4 is Babylon with 3.6. And rounding up the top 5 is Violent Night with 3.5.
Yes, Avatar seems like it's getting some legs. It seems like it's doing pretty well during the week, which is it surprised me because I didn't know if it's going to have that much hold on audiences. It's doing pretty well, and internationally it's doing pretty well.
Yeah, internationally it's a much bigger wave internationally. But I still believe that the weather is a factor for our domestic box office.
Yes, let me ask you about that, because like we're currently right now in America, we're getting hit by a cold winter storm, and so that has to have an effect on the box office. There's some states in America where people are
literally frozen over,
and they're told to stay at home. Yeah. So you got to think that plays a factor into these numbers.
Of course, I mean, especially with not only Avatar but Puss in Boots. I mean, that's a lot of children that no one's going to force their way to go, take them to the theater when it's absolutely freezing.
Raymond, let me ask you about the Avatar. Are you pleased with these numbers?
Well, I thought the movie was going to have a smaller drop, but I think, considering the holidays and everything that you guys have been saying about the weather, but I think the movie's still doing really well. I mean, and especially also kind of looking at the international numbers. I mean, the movie's still on track to being potentially, the biggest movie of the year, at least in the worldwide box office. While it not, guaranteed to be, the second highest grossing movie of all time, there's still a chance. Because I mean, I think for next week the movie might even like go up in the percentage. I don't think it's necessarily going to drop. And let's continue to see how the movie performs.
Yeah, and I kind of disagree with you, Mike, about it being underperforming. You think it's underperforming domestic-wise. I still think it's a giant. I mean, it already surpassed $250 million so far, and it's only been 2 weeks. It's not even really officially 2 weeks. So I'm just saying it would have been even better if the weather conditions were better.
Well, let me say this. I never thought that the movie's going to surpass the original number for Avatar. I have to say this, though. I think with these numbers, it's definitely going to surpass $1 billion, which is great. Mm-hmm. It's definitely going to be up there. It's going to be considered – it's already now considered one of the better – or one of the most grossing films of 2022. Mm-hmm. And it might even surpass Top Gun Maverick for that mantle. So, I mean, my – pessimistic view of it was just really because of what has come before it. My thoughts on just the box office in general for 2022, how everything kind of underperformed this year. So it's not necessarily a critique on the movie or how it's doing. It's just the box office itself. And hopefully, once we get into the new year and have more kind of variety of films, that's going to ultimately help the box office.
But all I'm saying is basically saying is that The Way of Water is enough big of a hit that it's going to remain the top 5 from now until most likely right before Valentine's Day weekend.
Yeah, I agree.
No matter what.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Let's look at some of the other films that came out this week. Puss in Boots, surprisingly, it's an okay number. Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, that's a pretty bad number. I think you can consider that a disappointment. Babylon, that's a bomb.
Yeah.
What does it say about director Damien Chazelle? What does he do after this?
Well, it was very presumptuous of him just to come up with a 3-hour film. Mm-hmm. I mean, nowadays, and everyone who saw it agrees that it's too damn long. Even the ones who liked the film.
So you think the length of the movie worked against it?
Definitely. Okay. I mean, and the feedback that it wasn't worth the wait. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Let's get into the rest of the top 10. Rich, tell us what made the rest of the top 10.
Coming number 6 is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Number 7 was The Whale. Number 8 is The Fablemans. Number 9 is The Menu. And number 10 is Strange World.
Okay, let's get into what's coming out next week. Rich, tell us what movie's coming out in wide release.
Absolutely nothing.
Oh, great. Great.
Yeah. In theaters this weekend, starting on Monday, Broker, you can find in theaters and select theaters, I guess. Also on Friday, in select theaters, you'll find Alice Darling and Tom Hanks, A Man Called Otto.
So I guess it's going to be Avatar again, and it's definitely going to, most likely going to be number one. I mean, there's no competition. It's going to be number one. It's definitely going to be number one.
It's just, what kind of amount it's going to make. That's all.
So let me ask you this, because New Year's is on a Sunday, New Year's Eve is on a Saturday. I'm really expecting low numbers for this weekend. I really low numbers, because usually everyone's not going to the movie theaters. They're either staying home with their family or they're going out to some New Year's party.
Of course.
So this is going to be a very low weekend.
Sure. But I mean, also the weather again is going to have it's still, not.
It's not clearing out.
It's not clearing out.
In Michigan, the town Hell has frozen over, while Paradise, about 300 miles away, is a little warmer.
And the power didn't come back on until about 5 a.m. The house was very cold at that point.
Okay, so now tell us, Rich, what movies are coming out on streaming?
The only movie worth noting is probably White Noise on Netflix.
Okay, cool. We'll keep an eye on that on Netflix. Before we go, after covering most of the box office for 2022, is there anything that you learned from this past year of covering the box office?
Yeah, basically almost everything that was a guaranteed hit has become a complete uncertainty at this point. Mm-hmm. And the only real, I think, kind of not even necessarily guaranteed, but like I guess mid-studio budget, anything kind of under 40 million. Those seem to be kind of like the movies that were the real success stories of the year. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the mid-budget movies, some of the lower budget movies, we talked about this last time about the horror movies did exceptionally well, surprisingly well. I think this year produced a lot of great horror movies. Also, there was some kind of surprises like the Minions, for sure. I mean, the Minions came out of nowhere.
Not necessarily, though, because, I mean, all the other Minions movies made like $1 billion at the box office, so it was kind of expected in that way.
But I think it proved that viral marketing or social media marketing is a guaranteed or it's a requirement for these movies, right? Movies nowadays needs to think beyond commercials, beyond trailers, beyond posters. They really need to focus on like social media and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it worked for Smile also.
Exactly. Smile, I mean, the viral marketing for that was just kind of genius, and it just helped.
I think Smile just had good word of mouth.
I think
I
think two things could be true. Let's talk about Top Gun Maverick. I mean, it's such a surprise hit. It is at this moment the top grossing movie of 2022. Why Top Gun Maverick? Why that movie, and why this year?
Because it was simplistic and it was like a feel good movie compared to everything else, basically, and it worked. Mm-hmm. Unlike most of the superhero films.
Yeah, I agree with Rich pretty much. It was just a crowd pleaser, and all the comic book movies that came out this year were just kind of divisive. I mean, all the Marvel movies, in my opinion, and kind of I guess Richard for the most part seems to agree, were just kind of bad or mediocre. And the best comic book movie of the year, in my opinion, was The Batman. And even that movie is, it's not for, everyone. It was a really kind of dark movie that, had more in common with a crime film than it did a superhero movie. It is surprising, though, because, I mean, no one would have expected, I wasn't expecting, a sequel to this old, Tom Cruise movie for, like, one of like Tom Cruise's first movies, basically.
Yeah, and also this Maverick is his best box office performance ever. I think it's the first movie of his that passed $1 billion. I think in a lot of ways the movie kind of works as a sports film, and I think rewatching it again over the past weekend, I really respected the way it was edited. I mean, it's like there's a preciseness and there's it feels like every moment was kind of thought out, and that you don't get from like say the Marvel movies or even the recent comic book movies. The problem with these kind of type of blockbusters that don't make money is that you could feel the rewrites, the reshoots, and all that stuff. With
Yeah.
Top Gun Maverick, you don't. You feel like there was an intentional meaning behind each scene, each edit, each kind of moment in the movie. And I after rewatching it again and having this new appreciation of the movie, because I wasn't like the biggest fan when I first saw it, but now that I have an appreciation of the movie, I really believe it should win the Oscar for Best Picture.
I thought you were gonna say. I thought it should really win the Oscar for best editing.
I mean,
I will.
if it does, I say that's fine with me. That's fine with me if it does.
Tell me what's the biggest surprise of 2022 concerning the box office?
Horror. If it wasn't for Top Gun, horror would have saved the theaters.
And for me, I guess it's similar, but it's kind of like the opposite at the same thing at the same time. My biggest surprise at the box office is that horror movies are the only ones that succeeded.
Yeah.
I'm blown away that everything else has underperformed.
I want to say thank you for watching InsideFlix, and we'll say Happy New Year's, and we'll see you in 2023.